Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm working on two prompts for Junk Journal January. The prompts are bubble and tissue for days 19 and 20, and I'm gonna try a bubble technique that I'm gonna fail at. So here I have a glass with water and a little bit of dish soap, and I'm adding some of the ink that I have for my glass pen. So this is more like a watercolor ink that has some glittery specks. I don't know if you can see there. So I'm mixing it and trying to create bubbles. I really wanted to create a bubble pattern using this technique in a paper that then I was gonna use to collage. Then I got a straw and I started blowing to create those bubbles, and I'm putting this tea dye paper on top. Those circles kind of things in that tea dye paper were created by putting the tea bags on top, which I guess, let's say they look like bubbles. So I keep doing this, generating bubbles and then putting my paper on top, and I don't really like how it's turning. So then I started blowing bubbles. I was having a lot of fun. I've actually done this before with my son, where I've mixed bubble solution with food coloring and we got some great results, but not this time. I think I should have done bubble solution instead of dish soap, because the bubbles didn't stay. As you can see, they were just bursting, and I don't know, I wasn't getting what I wanted. And then I decided to do this. I just made these giant bubbles by blowing into my solution, and then I put it on top of the paper. The idea is that the bubbles would have some of the ink, so then when they touch the paper, the ink will leave a pattern as the bubble pattern. But that was too much, so then I used this cardstock on top and I messed it up because I pressed it down. I shouldn't have done that. So while I'm letting that dry and see how what the disaster I made, I'm gonna start working on the tissue part of this prompt. So I was showing you there this tissue that I have, that it came with some packaging. It's a cream colored tissue that has some designs, very faint designs that I really like, and I've used it for many things. So my goal here is to use tissue paper to age magazine image. So I selected that image from that old architectural digest magazine, and you can see that the image is bright, it's very colorful, but I want to mute it and I want to make it look old. So I'm kind of distressing this image using tissue. So I'm using matte Mod Podge, and that sponge brush with water, which it had way too much water. And I think looking back, I needed to use a lot more Mod Podge than this. But you know, you learn from your mistakes, and this whole thing, it's full of mistakes. Not the tissue part, not so bad, although I just tore it there, you can see, but it's okay. I like when the tissue tears like that because it kind of gives you that, I don't know, old looking effect that I'm looking for. You can see here some of the designs in the tissue paper that are gonna get kind of melted with the magazine image. Basically, this is a decoupage technique, but instead of using napkin, I'm using tissue paper. I wanted this prompt to be different from the fragile one that I did recently, where I used napkin to create a page in my journal. So I wanted to use tissue in a different way, and one of those ways is to use it to age a picture. So I'm dabbing everywhere with the brush, and then I do it with my fingers, and I'm trying to fix every corner everywhere where there is not enough Mod Podge. So you can see there how it's looking. I really like that it has all those wrinkles. I don't mind it. So while that was drying, I went back to work on the bubble prompt, and I'm gonna use this paint marker to create some bubbles using a lid. You can do this with paint, but I didn't want to get my paint out because I already made a mess with the bubbles, and I don't like to get messy. So I use my pen, my marker, to add paint into this lid to create those circles. And so the first time I did it with white, and now I'm doing with blue just on top. And I'm thinking about how bubbles look like when you make, soap bubbles, what colors are in those bubbles, and usually you can see some blues and maybe yellow. I could have done a third layer with yellow, but I really like how this one is looking. And then with the white pen, I'm adding some highlights into these bubbles, and I love it. They really look like bubbles now. The highlight and the double layer add some dimensions. And here I'm showing you the results from that bubble dyeing technique that didn't really work. I think I needed to use paint instead of ink, and to make it a lot more consistent so that the bubbles would have more color in them and leave that design. So I'm making a pocket with that cardstock, and then my initial idea was to use this tea-dyed paper that has the bubble dyeing to create a collage on this page, because I don't like the purple page. But then when I made those bubbles that I thought, oh, they would be in the background, I love the bubbles. So I wanted them to be like the main focus of my page, and I didn't want to cover it fully with paper. So I'm just adding a little bit of this paper in one corner, in the top corner of the page, and I'm gonna add a little bit more in the pocket. If I would have gotten better bubble dyeing, I think I would have probably covered the whole page, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you like those bubbles? Because I love the bubbles I stamped, I guess. So now I'm gonna decorate the pocket. You can kind of see the blue ink and that piece of cardstock, but not much. So I'm just making sure everything is glued. The papers were not fully dried because I didn't have a lot of patience. I actually put all these papers on top of my toaster oven, and I turned my toaster oven on for a little bit. I didn't want to wait. And now I'm making a notch here for the pocket. Oh, so I haven't mentioned, so I'm making a pocket because I'm gonna make a journaling card with the image that we just aged using the tissue. So that's how I'm gonna connect the two pages. If you want to see all the other videos I've made for Junk Journal January 2025, I'm going to link the playlist down below so you can check all the other prompts out. I haven't done videos for every prompt, but you can check the ones I've done. So that's day 19 for bubble. And I'm gonna add a purple flower. Also, you can see in the page next to it, day 18 bright. It's gonna be the whole video. You can see what I made there. Not how I made that collage, but what I made for bright. So I'm putting a flower sticker. So keeping the purple tone everywhere. So now I'm writing bubble. And as I'm doing this voiceover, I'm realizing I could have done bubble wrap for this. But anyways, I had fun playing with the bubbles. I need to practice more that technique. So there I'm gluing my pocket, and again, I love the bubbles. Now we'll go back to this image. The flowers that I picked from that magazine also have some purple, so it's all going to be in purple shades at the end. So I'm trimming it following the edges of the image. I'm using my craft knife for this. And I'm gonna save all of those bits that have the tissue. Then I'm going over the tissue paper with ink. I changed the tool for this because that blending brush is a lot softer. I didn't want to tear the existing tissue paper, that it's not already torn. I wish you could touch this. I mean, if you do it, touch it. It has a very nice texture. And to make my journaling card, I'm gonna use this product box that I have had for a while. So I'm just cutting a little bit of this cardboard, and here I'm gonna have a problem. So the shiny part of that box is very shiny, I guess, and I'm not sure if my magazine paper is fully glued. So I'm using art glitter glue to make sure that everything is well glued, because the magazine is glossy, the box is glossy, so I'm trying to glue two glossy surfaces together, and I was afraid that it wasn't gonna glue, and at first it seems that it's all well glued, but we're gonna see. Just wait. So now I'm trimming it again. And that's the beginning of my journaling card. So let's see how it looks in the pocket. Then I realized that there are some corners where the tissue is not fully glued. So I'm using glue stick to fix that. And while I'm doing that, I realized that this whole thing was ungluing. So I think art glitter glue dried way too fast, and the papers didn't have a chance to glue together because there were two glossy surfaces. But the glue stick seemed to work. It's still glued. So now I'm rounding all of my corners. I actually really like how this looks. You can still see the flowers. You can see the design from the tissue paper, and there are those torn parts of the tissue paper that look like a window into the magazine image. So I'm gonna create a little cluster to go on this journaling card. I mean, you could leave this as is, but I always want more. It's gonna be simple. So I'm using more of that magazine page that has the tissue paper, but I'm using a text portion. I like how text covered with tissue paper looks like. I've done that before. I don't know if I've showed you in a video, but I have a few pages that I've covered, some that I've added paint on top to make it look even more old and grungy. You can play a lot with tissue paper, trying to create texture and trying to distress images. So here I'm just gluing the components of my little cluster. I didn't like how that went, so I'm gonna remove it, glue it farther apart. And again, I'm using a purple flower, and I wanted to put a stamp sticker. I really like that one, the butterflies, but I don't like the direction. I wanted a horizontal one, not a vertical one. And I decided to go with that one in the end. So now it's time to glue the flower. If you're following the Junk Journal January challenge, what did you do for tissue? I think it can get a little bit tricky. That's almost the final product. I'm gonna ink all the edges now. Yes, I was saying some of the prompts can get a little bit tricky. You either take them very literal, as I do. If it says tissue, I'm gonna use tissue. I don't know. Now I'm writing tissue for the prompt name and inking a little bit more because why not? And it looks cool. This is something that I'm gonna be doing more often, I think. I'm checking bubble and tissue off my list. I love the bubbles. Honestly, I want to draw more bubbles. And the bucket ended up being super cute too. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time soon. Bye!